Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrutyam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Ato Jaya Mudiraye Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, text number 35. Yathā mahānti bhūtāni bhūteṣūccāvaceṣu praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni tathā teṣu aham yathā mahāni bhūtāni bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni tathā teṣu aham yathā mahāni bhūtāni bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni tathā teṣu aham. Anybody?
mahānti bhūtāni
Yathā mahānti bhūtāni bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv
praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni
praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni tathā teṣu aham. Yathā mahānti bhūtāni bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni tathā teṣu aham. Anybody else? Yathā mahānti bhūtāni bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv, praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni, tathā teṣu teṣvaham. What word meaning? Yathā, just as, mahānti, the universal, bhūtāni, elements, bhūteṣu ucca-avaceṣu, in the minute and gigantic, after, praviṣṭāni, entered, apraviṣṭāni, not entered, tathā, so, teṣu, in them, not, teṣu, in them, aham, myself. Translation: O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The great elements of material creation, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether, all enter into the body of all manifested entities. The seas, mountains, aquatics, plants, reptiles, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and everyone materially manifested, and at the same time, such elements are differently situated. In the developed stage of consciousness, the human being can study both physiological and physical science, but the basic principles of such sciences are nothing but the material elements and nothing more. The body of a human being and the body of a mountain, as also the bodies of the demigods, including Brahma, are all of the same ingredients, earth, water, etc. And at the same time, the elements are beyond the body. The elements were created first, and therefore they entered into the bodily construction later. But in both circumstances, they entered the cosmos and also did not enter. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, by His different energies, namely the internal and external, is within everything in the manifested cosmos, and at the same time He is outside of everything, situated in the kingdom of God, Vaikuṇṭhaloka, as described before. This is very nicely stated in Brahma-saṁhitā 5.37 as follows: Ananda chinmaya rasa pratibhavitabhis tabirya eva nijarupataya kalabhi goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead Govinda, who, by expansion of his internal potency of transcendental existence, knowledge, and bliss, enjoys in his own expanded forms. Simultaneously, he enters into every atom of creation. The expansion of his plenary parts is also more definitely explained in the same Brahma-saṁhitā 5.35 as follows: Ekopyaso rachayutam jagadanda kotim echakshirasti jagadanda chayaya danta andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead Govinda, who, by one of his plenary portions, enter into the existence of every universe and every particle of the atoms, and thus ultimately unlimitedly manifest his infinite energy all over the material creation. The impersonalist can imagine or even perceive that the Supreme Brahman is thus all-pervading, and therefore they conclude that there is no possibility of his personal form. Herein lies the mystery of his transcendental knowledge. This mystery is transcendental love of Godhead, and one who is surcharged with such transcendental love of Godhead can without difficulty see the personality of Godhead in every atom and every movable or immovable object, and at the same time he can see the personality of Godhead in his own abode, Goloka, enjoying eternal pastimes with his eternal associates, who are also expansions of his transcendental existence. This vision is the real mystery of spiritual knowledge. As stated by the Lord in the beginning, Sarhasyam Tadangam Cha. This mystery is the most confidential part of the knowledge of the Supreme Lord, and it is impossible for the mental speculators to discover by dint of intellectual gymnastics. The mystery can be revealed through the process recommended by Brahmaji in Brahma-saṁhitā 5.38 as follows: Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena Shanta sadaiva hrudayeshu vilokayanti Yam shama sundaram achintya gunaswarupa Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the original personality of Godhead, Govinda, whom the pure devotees, their eyes smeared with ointment of love of Godhead, always oversees, observe within their hearts. The Govinda, the original personality of Godhead, is Shama Sundara with all transcendental qualities. I will read only till that portion because this purport is very big. Tomorrow we can cover the remaining purport of the same verse. So before going further, I will chant Mangalacharan to invoke auspiciousness, and then we will discuss something, whatever I can understand. Om Ajnānatimirandasya Jnānāñjana Salakaya Chakshuru Anmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhūtale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namavom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaura Tvishe Namaha. E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Krupa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I welcome you all to this Saturday Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today is January 1st of 2022. Unfortunately, you have to stick with me. Somebody was asking who is giving class, Varsana Maharaj. He comes and asks me only. Who is giving class? I said some Prabhu is giving. What is his name? Badarayani Das is giving class. And Maharaj is not giving. I said, I don't know. Somehow they scheduled me. It's your bad luck that you have to hear. On January 1st of 2022, hear from me. Before speaking, actually, there are so many senior Vaishnavas, Prabhupada disciples are sitting here. It's a very, very embarrassing situation, embarrassment for me to speak in front of them as they are so elevated. It's like sitting on a fire and then saying something. But since it is the order, I try to speak something. Now, this particular chapter is answers by citing the Lord's version. And especially the verses which we are reading, that is 35, is known as one of the Chaturshloki. That is, when Brahma, he appeared from the womb of Lord Vishnu, and Brahma could not understand where he is, what he is doing. He is going up and down in that lotus stem where it covers the 14 planetary systems. And then finally he could hear the words of Lord Vishnu saying tathā. So that Brahma started performing tapasya. Prabhupada says in one of the purports of Bhagavad Gita, says Brahma performed 1,000 years of demigods calculations. As per demigod calculations, 1,000 years he performed tapasya, and then Lord Vishnu was pleased with his tapasya. And what did Vishnu do? To surprise to all of us, especially it is understood that as per the Vedic culture, one should greet others like this as a namaste. But what did Vishnu do? He shook his hands with Brahma, congratulated him for performing his tapasya. And then Lord Vishnu started speaking to Brahma. Brahma asked some questions and Vishnu is answering those questions, and that's where this chapter we are in now, where Sukadeva Goswami is explaining to Parikshit Maharaj is Vishnu's answers by citing Lord's version. He is informing, Sukadeva Goswami is informing to Parikshit Maharaj by citing Lord's versions of what Lord is saying about. So in these 4 shlokas which we are trying to hear, which we are trying to read and study and understand, it's all by even though we do not have any qualifications as such, but just by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Bhakti Vinod Thakur and previous acharyas, we are able to hear and understand what the highly qualified personality Lord Brahma, he was hearing from Lord Vishnu, and we also could hear what is Lord Vishnu is explaining to Lord Brahma. And it says that Brahma is the first living entity in this material world. And that Brahma is receiving this knowledge from Vishnu, and by the mercy of previous acharyas, we also could able to hear the same version what Brahma is hearing. Now here, the Vishnu is explaining to Brahma, we call this as a Chaturshloki, these 4 verses, which are the essence of all the Vedas and of all the Upanishads, and that Vishnu is explaining to Brahma in 4 verses, the essence of everything, entire Vedic understanding. It's something surprising and very confusing. How is this? The Srimad Bhagavatam is containing almost around 18,000 verses. And Mahabharata, he says that it is having around, in Indian standard we call it as a lakhs. Some says 1 lakh and some says 2 lakhs or 100,000, 200,000 verses in Mahabharata itself. And Ramayana and then Vedas and Upanishads, thousands of verses. Of all that information, how could Lord Vishnu, he put in 4 verses and explaining to Brahma? It's like when Parikshit Maharaj, he heard entire Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's the time for him to leave. Any time snake may come, it may bite, so Parikshit Maharaj is going to die. So immediately Mother Uttara, and since she was not there with the Parikshit Maharaj when he was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, she asked Parikshit Maharaj, quickly tell me, what is that you heard from Sukadeva Goswami? Sukadeva Goswami spoke almost around 7 days and 7 nights continuously to Parikshit Maharaj. And then Mother Uttara is asking him, please tell me, in essence, what is it you heard from Sukadeva Goswami? And of course, Parikshit Maharaj explained to her, and that's what we get to hear, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which is 3 volumes actually. Whereas if you go to Srimad Bhagavatam, it is 12 cantos, 18 volumes, which he compressed in 3 volumes, and then he could be able to tell his mother, Uttara, what he heard from this Sukadeva Goswami. So the essence, many times, even in India also, it's quite common. If somebody asks us, there is a Ramayana, huge, such a big volumes of a Ramayana. If somebody asks, can you please explain to us in just few words, from my native language, we call it as, we say in 3 words, katte kutte teche. Means he tied Mangal Sutra to Mother Sita, he married Mother Sita, and then he fought with Rama, and then he brought Mother Sita. That is Ramayana, in essence. He married her, and then he killed Ravan, and then he brought Mother Sita. So these are the 3 words which we can explain Ramayana. So that way Lord Vishnu is explaining to Brahma the essence of all the Vedic knowledge in these 4 verses. And prelude to these 4 verses, Lord Vishnu actually speaks something to Brahma. Just very beautifully he says, what does these 4 verses contains? That he is speaking to Brahma. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Jnanam Param Guhyam Me Yad Vijnana Samanvitam Sarahasyam Tadangam Cha Grahana Gaditam Maya. Here Lord Vishnu is telling Brahma, Jnanam Paramam Guhyam Me. He is saying Jnanam, that is this knowledge, Paramam. Now when we go to say this Paramam is a very, very beautiful word. We talk about this word again and again in Vedic scriptures. Ishvara, there are so many Ishvaras in this material world or in this creation. Ishvara, Parama, Krishna. Of all the Ishvaras, the supreme of all these Ishvaras is Krishna. Parama Ishvara. So here Lord Vishnu is telling Jnanam Param Guhyam Me. It is so confidential knowledge that he is going to give it to Brahma. He is saying again it is confidential, and similar thing Krishna tells to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Many times he tells Arjuna. Like in the 4th chapter, Krishna speaks about this Param, I wanted to recite these verses, so beautiful. Krishna says to Arjuna. This is in fourth chapter, second verse. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshu vidu. No, not that one. Yeah. Sa evam maya tedya yoga prokta puratana bhaktosi me sakacheti rahasyam hi yatat uttamam. He's telling here, this is the knowledge which Krishna gave this knowledge to Surya Bhagavan, and Surya Bhagavan in turn he gave this knowledge to Ikshvaku, and Ikshvaku gave this knowledge to Manu, and this knowledge lost in the disciplic succession, and now I am giving this knowledge to you. But he's saying, why Krishna is giving this knowledge to Arjuna? Because bhaktosi me sakacheti, and you are my devotee, and you are so dear to me, Krishna. And that's why he's saying, I am giving rahasyam he etat uttamam. And this is confidential, rahasyam, secret. Secret means normally we should tell in the ears. Come here, listen to this. It should be like that. But Krishna is telling to Arjuna standing in front of both the armies. There are thousands of men are there, including horses and so many elephants. And in front of everyone Krishna is telling it. And then he is telling this is a rahasyam. And then again, at some other place, Krishna tells that is in, I think, 9th chapter, also Krishna tells the most confidential knowledge. There also Krishna says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Idam Te Guyyatamam. He says, Idam Te Guyyatamam. This is confidential knowledge. Pravakshyami anasuyave. And since I am giving this knowledge, Arjuna, because you are anasuyave, because you are not envious of others, that's why I am giving this knowledge. So the Krishna, he keeps saying this thing again and again, even though he is speaking it out loud, and then even though he is saying this is rahasyam and this is guhyamam, it is so confidential. And the same thing here, Vishnu is telling Arjuna, Lord Brahma, Yanam parama guhyam me. This is the confidential knowledge. And then he says, Yat Vijnanam Samanvitam. So Jnanam, Vijnanam, Prabhupada also talks about this thing in Bhagavad Gita. What is the difference between Jnanam and Vijnanam? Jnanam means the knowledge which we get, that is the Jnanam. But Vijnanam means when it is with realization, and that's known as a Vijnanam. Jnanam, and then he says, Yat Vijnanam Samanvitam. That one can understand this knowledge with Vijnanam, that is with the realization of what? Of devotional service. That's what Vishnu is telling. And then Sarahasyam Tadangam Cha. Again here he is saying Sarahasyam. It is not even Rahasyam. It is higher than Rahasyam, that is topmost confidential this is. So he is saying Sarahasyam Tadangam Cha. And that's what he is going to explain to Arjuna. So these are the four things which Lord Vishnu is telling that he is going to explain to Brahma. That is Jnanam, and then Yad Vijnanam, Sahasryamcha, and then Grahana Gaditam Maya. So this is what he is going to explain. So in the next verse, when we see what Lord Vishnu is talking about, is that in the verse number 33, Aham eva gare nyayad yat sad asat param paschad aham yad etaccha yo vasishyate so my aham. He says, O Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation when there was nothing but myself. So here Krishna is giving a knowledge to Arjuna, saying that he was there before the creation. And then he is the one who created this universe or the entire creation. And then he is there even after annihilation of this creation. So Lord Vishnu, he is saying that I am the one who created this entire creation itself. And he is there before, and he is there during the creation, and he is there after the creation also. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, we should note very carefully that the personality of Godhead is addressing Lord Brahma and specifying with a great emphasis himself, pointing out that it is he, the personality of Godhead, who existed before creation. He is existed before creation. He only is the one who is the maintains this creation, and he is even there after the annihilation of the entire creation. So this is the Yanam which Lord Vishnu is giving Brahma. And then in the next verse, Lord Vishnu, he explains to Brahma that what is that Vikyana that he should understand. And that he said, Arte raham yat prayate, yat pratiyate, na pratiyate ta chatmani, tad vaidya amo mayam, yathā bāso yathā tamaha. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value. Now when Lord Vishnu is saying that he is the one created this entire universe. Now he is telling Brahma, if you see anything that is of worth or that is of any value, and then that you should understand that it comes from me. And if you find anything without any relationship with me, how is that possible? Because Vishnu is the one who created this entire universe, and he is the one who is maintaining this universe. Then how is it possible that anything can exist without his relationship, without the relationship of Vishnu? That means then essentially we are saying that Lord Vishnu is not the supreme personality of Godhead. So Krishna is not the supreme person, because there is something existing without his relationship also. So that's where Lord Vishnu is saying to Brahma, if you find something which is not in relationship with me, then what is that? Then he says, you should understand that is my illusory energy. Because there is nothing that can exist in this entire creation without a relationship with Vishnu. Everything is having a relationship with Krishna. There is nothing that exists beyond or above Lord Krishna. So that's what second verse is talking about, is giving a Vikyana to Brahma, that there is nothing that can exist without any relationship with Krishna. So in the translation, Prabhupada writes, O Brahma, whatever appears to be any value, if it is without a relation to me, has no reality. So then there is no reality in that. Why? Because no, it is my illusory energy. That is the illusory energy of the Lord. That reflection which appears to be in darkness, that is nothing but the reflection which appears to be in darkness. So there is nothing that exists in this creation beyond Lord Vishnu's relationship as such. And then in the third sloka, Lord Vishnu is explaining, that's what we are reading today, that 35 verse, where he talks about yathā bhūtāni, bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv, praviṣṭāni te apraviṣṭāni, tathā teṣu na teṣvaham. So he says, O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. It's a rahasya. This is so confidential. It is known, like as Krishna is telling Arjuna, this is the most confidential knowledge. How is that confidential knowledge? Krishna is explaining to Arjuna. On top of his voice, he is talking to Arjuna. And then there are so many soldiers there. and then we publish this Bhagavad Gita and distribute this Bhagavad Gita so much, and then Krishna is telling that this knowledge is the most confidential knowledge. How is that there is a rahasyam in this? Where is this confidentiality in this? There is no confidentiality. So the same thing here, even though Krishna is explaining here, Vishnu is explaining to Brahma that this entire material universe is created by me, and then there is nothing exists without my relationship. And then here in the third verse he is saying that these material elements what are created by Krishna, they also enter into the cosmos, but at the same time they are not in the cosmos. And which is again, it's kind of understanding, but at the same time unable to understand what is this. So that's Prabhupada, he explains this thing very nicely, very beautifully. Actually at some place, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he says these things like, I wanted to tell this, but I don't want to tell this, but since it is given by previous acharyas, I want to tell these most confidential things. I can tell these most confidential things boldly. Why? Because when the people do not have faith, they cannot understand these most confidential things. Like an example, if there is a person who is known as a materialist, this word actually is coined by one of the German philosopher in the 1850s. He calls himself as a materialist. Why? Because he says, whatever I see, everything is a matter. Within this world, outside this world, whatever I am seeing, everything is matter. There is nothing beyond the matter. For him, so everything is a matter. Even if he sees a human being, he is seeing the matter, that's all. He is seeing the senses, he is seeing the body, which compromises of bhumi, rapo, nalo, vayu, kammaro, buddhi, nevacha. These are all the elements. But he is not seeing the spirit. So then, beyond the materialist, there comes as the impersonalists or mayavadis. What they think is that material is there, but then God is all pervading. He is there everywhere. He does not have a form. This is what they see. And then beyond impersonalist, there are the yogis. The yogis, what they are seeing the matter, and they are seeing the God is all pervading. They also agree for that. But at the same time, they are seeing the Supreme Lord as a Paramatma in everybody's heart. That's what the yogis they see. But then, when it comes to the devotees, what do they see? The devotees, they see the Supreme Lord as Krishna with two hand forms. That's what the devotees they see. So, what is the secret that devotees are only seeing Krishna, materialist is not able to see, and as well as impersonalist cannot see, and yogis are also not seeing it. So what is that? That's what Prabhupada talks about. That is the secret. That is the rahasyam, and that is the guhyam. Guhyam idam uttamam. This is topmost to guhyam. It's the best, better, and even much, much better. Like that. It's knowledge. So the Prabhupada is saying the great elements of this material creation, namely earth, water, fire, air and ether, all enter into the body of all manifested entities. It's true. This is nothing in this secret. We all can hear this. We all can understand that. He says that the seas, mountains, aquatics, plants, reptiles, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods and everyone materially manifest, and at the same time such elements are differently situated. Now the first created by God created this earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then created the other forms. It says that human form, we are also having all these five elements within us. There is earth, and there is water, and there is air, and there is fire. Yeah. all of these things. But at the same time, saying they are not within the human being also. And another thing which Krishna talks about here in this verse is that he is giving an analogy, he is giving, Krishna. What is that analogy he is giving? First he is giving this earth, cosmos, elements that enter into the cosmos, at the same time they are not there. Similarly, I am also enter into the universe, but at the same time I am not in the universe. So this analogy is also known as Chandrabhaga, something like that. Some Sanskrit verse is there. So if at all you want to see the moon is far, far away. You may not able to see properly, clearly. We are not able to identify where is moon. Then we show the tree and there is a branch. Just see above the branch, there we can see the moon. But tree is somewhere here, but moon is again in a different planet itself. But whatever we know physically, and that we take, that gives us a reference, and with that reference we can see the moon. And that's known as analogy. So similarly, Krishna here is giving an analogy, saying that how these material elements enter into the cosmos, at the same time they are not in the cosmos. Similarly, I also enter into this creation, but at the same time I am not in this creation. So here Prabhupada is saying these material elements, they enter into the cosmos, but at the same time they are not in the cosmos. Just like the human body is made up of these 5 elements, but once we leave this body is going to back again merge with like the air which is within our body, it again merges with the air in the atmosphere. The body which is made up of earth, it merges into the earth, and the fire that merges with the fire. That's what here is talking about. So what is that the secret which is making devotees to see Krishna, whereas other people cannot see? That's the Guhyam. And Prabhupada, he writes that thing as he says that is the transcendental knowledge, and that mystery is the transcendental love of Godhead. The devotee, that prema bhakti, which is the secret that makes the devotee to see the Supreme Lord. Than the materialist, than impersonalist, than the yogis, they cannot see the Supreme Lord, but the devotees can see the Supreme Lord because they are in love with the Supreme Lord. That is prema bhakti. Prabhupada translate that into the transcendental love. That's why they could able to see. That's why Prabhupada quotes this verse as in Brahma-saṁhitā, premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena syanta sadaiva hrudayeshu vilokayanti yam sham sundaram achintya gunaswarupam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Why devotees can able to see Krishna? Because their eyes are anointed with an ointment. What is that ointment? It's the love of Godhead. They anoint those eyes with that ointment so that they can able to see Krishna clearly and properly. I think it's 5 to 9. I'll stop here and then see if anybody is having any questions or comments, chastisements.
Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. You led us up from the beginning of Brahma taking birth in the lotus flower, and then being blessed with the opportunity to hear directly from Krishna. And then you introduced the 4 shlokas and explained to us how these 4 shlokas and their all the information of the Upanishads and the Vedas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, all put into these 4 verses, and gave us a reminder of also the first and second, and now the 3rd verse. Now in the 2nd verse, Krishna is telling us that anything you perceive that is not in relation to me is illusion. But we also hear from the first verse that Krishna was there before creation. All there is Krishna. During creation, all there is Krishna. After creation, all there is Krishna. So the sense of illusion, this kind of gives us an indication of like how powerful this illusion can be.
Yes.
So it brings me to this one question now. And also in reference to Krishna's verse to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm situated within everyone's heart, and from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. My question is, which is more powerful? Remembrance or forgetfulness? Which is more powerful?
I don't know, we have to find out that. I mean, in a negative way, yes, forgetfulness is more powerful. In positive way, remembrance is more powerful.
Okay.
And that's what I could see. Again, it depends upon our consciousness. As Krishna is within our heart as a Paramatma, if we really want to remember Him, He gives the remembrance. If you do not want to remember Him, He gives the forgetfulness also. The fact that the living entity is unable to perform devotional service is that the living entity, it's a desire not to perform the devotional service. It is a desire of a living entity not to take part in the devotional service. Even after practicing a devotional service, we see many times why we are not able to progress in our devotional service. It is because the living entities desire not to really practice the devotion. It's not that we are not practicing, but at the same time, as we call that, we are not putting full efforts, our heart into that. Like Vaisheshik Prabhu says, wherever your heart, the energy flows. And since our heart is not in it, we are half-baked, little here, little there. So accordingly, depending upon our consciousness, Krishna gives us that energy to flow through us. That's what I could see. If anybody, others can answer that.
Thank you so very much for your class. And that was an interesting tidbit of information about the materialists. This German philosopher, I didn't know that. I have to look that up. But even as a materialist, even when we're thinking, well, I just perceive everything around me. But the thing is, Prabhupada explains that our senses are imperfect. So we're not even perceiving everything, because there's some things that are on a microscopic level, and they're right before us, but we cannot perceive that microscopic level. There's so much activity going on. You know, I always say that like the viruses nowadays, they're like the zombies. People like to think about zombies, they like to hear stories about zombies, but on a microscopic level, the virus is like a zombie. It's not alive, but it's going here and there, killing living things. And so, you know, Krishna consciousness gives us such a unique perspective on things and on our lives. And so, once again, I just wanted to thank you so much for your class.
Thank you. Like this Germans, the philosopher, even though we call others as a materialist, the way we look at them, but he is so proud that he is a materialist. So he takes pride in saying that, yes, I am a materialist because I see matter everywhere. Wherever I go, I see matter only. And that's what he is perceiving. Just I want to add that. Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I'd like to still touch on that point.
Yes, bro.
In regards to remembrance.
Forgetfulness.
There's the element that, so much knowledge is available in regards to substantiating Krishna's position as a supreme. And I may know that theoretically, so much about, yes, Krishna's God. And we feel it also that we, through experience that, deviating from the path, and then there's reactions, but still I deviate. Still, so there's obviously some deep-rooted envy somewhere. And so where is that coming from?
It's like in Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, text number 4 and 5, Krishna talks about, he gives so many qualities of a human being, so many qualities that enter into this material world. And he says, I am everything comes from me. Let me read these two verses, beautiful verses actually. It's very nice to read that. And in that purport, Prabhupada quotes at the end of the purport that whatever you see in this material world, everything good or bad is emanating from Krishna. He says that one. So that way if you go to see, that means those things also coming from Krishna as such. But then another way to look at it is that, so there is evil, that means there is no God. Or if there is a God, why there is evil? That I think we may be knowing about this thing. If there is God, then how can there is evil? How can evil can present if there is a God? So the answer to that is that when there is an absence of the God, there is evil. Just like, actually speaking, in this material world, there is no light. Material world is full of darkness. Just because of presence of a sun, we are getting a light. The moment when sun goes away, then it comes to its natural position, that is full of darkness. So then, actually speaking, there is no darkness as per the science analogy if you go to see. How can you define darkness? The absence of light that's what we define that as a darkness. And similarly, the evil, how we can define it as absence of God, that's called as evil. So then how can this absence of God comes? Because of our consciousness. So we are not really God conscious, and that's where we become evil conscious. I see this Buddhir Yanam asammoha kshamas satyam dhamma samaha sukham dukkham bhava bhavo bhayam cha bhayam evacha ahimsa samata tustis tapo dhanam yaso yasaha bhavanti bhava bhūtānam matta eva pratagvidahu. Intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt, delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, self-control and calmness, pleasure, pain, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, infamy are created by me alone. So Krishna is telling us, it's nothing that is not covered in whatever we can see in this entire material world. But Prabhupada writes at the end of the purport of this, of whatever we find, good or bad, the origin is Krishna. Nothing can manifest in this material world which is not in Krishna. That is knowledge. Although we know that things are differently situated, we should realize that everything flows from Krishna. So maybe to your question, answer looks like it is from Krishna.
Thank you very much. Just want to add one point on all of that too, is we have examples of great personalities and who are in a situation of recognizing Krishna as a supreme, but at the same time not able to surrender, like Dhritarashtra.
Yeah.
He knew that Krishna was God, but still he couldn't surrender.
I heard that pastime which Prabhupada is talking to, Srila Prabhupada is talking to his disciples, sannyasi disciples. They are saying that, Prabhupada, we are so much covering entire country and the entire world, and I think we can conquer this entire world with Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said, yes, if you are convinced, all of you are convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, we can conquer this entire material world within 18 days. And Prabhupada asking each and everyone, are you? But they could not answer to Srila Prabhupada. Since it is being Srila Prabhupada, probably. And it may be partly us also. We may be saying all these things, but deep in our heart, really, are we really convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Lord or not? It's the same thing. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, so we'll stop here. Grandharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.